morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. We've been talking a lot here on Beyond the Trailer about how the comic book movie is evolving to be a very crowded genre, where movies have huge casts to try and not only offset the costs perhaps, but to really please the fans, to have a selling point be like, you want to see your favorite character on the big screen? Here's your chance, even if it only is for 5 seconds. That's of course the worst case scenario, but sometimes a real life scenario based on the films that are coming out. And one of the films that has been particularly discussed to this subject matter is X-Men Days of Future Past. Very crowded cast. We saw the photos at Comic-Con, very big, almost like a class photo. Xavier really is becoming a school with an entire student body. But something that's coming into light here is that a benefit here is that Fox pretty much has their own little public relations army now that they can deploy across the globe to promote the film. And that's exactly what they're going to do. In light of the Bryan Singer situation, they want to take the focus off of him and put it onto the cast. And they're in a unique position to do that because they have so many cast members that they can almost send out like X-Men teams to different cities. And they're going to hit the big cities. It's been announced, the ones you would expect, like London, New York, Los Angeles, hit China, the big movie markets, but also they're going to go to Sao Paulo and other countries around the world just to really try and make sure everybody goes and see X-Men Days of Future Past when it hits the big screen. So I'm curious to how you guys feel about this. Are all the X-Men cast members equal? Would you be interested in seeing all of them? And how would you break them up? What should the teams be? I mean, a big thing that X-Men fans like to do is to talk about who you need to have on your team. I just said when I reviewed the opening battle sequence for the movie that every good X-Men team needs a teleporter. And I saw some of you in the comment section putting in your advice for what teams needed. Long-range fighters, distance fighters, a speedster perhaps. So I'm curious as to what kind of teams you would deploy for promotional purposes. For instance, should you only send out all the heavyweights together? Should there be like a gold team? In the X-Men comics it was the gold and the blue team, of all the big stars. Or would you take a star? I think the big stars obviously are like Hugh Jackman, Jennifer Lawrence, of course, Michael Fassbender, Patrick Stewart, and to some degree also Ian McKellen and James McAvoy. And then you have your second tier, though, of your international stars. And this is where I think things get really interesting. Of course, there's Evan Peters. He's not an international star, but he's in the very much talked about role of Quicksilver. I think a lot of people would want to talk to him. But then also you have Omar Sy. People have been telling me I've been pronouncing his name wrong. My apologies. Omar Sy, a huge movie star in France, one of their biggest movie stars right now. Fan Bingbing from China, and of course Peter Dinklage from Game of Thrones. So you have different tiers here. So I personally think it would be good to mix up, take a big star and couple them with an international star. Now, often international stars don't do press all over the world. They just do it in their country. Omar Sy, for instance, would only promote the film in Europe and in his native France to make sure that audience turns out, and that's why he was cast. I think that's a mistake, though, and I don't think that's why Omar Sy would sign on for a film like this. He wants to be introduced to American audiences, and I think that his involvement is a great talking point, the international, global aspects of the film. I want to hear from Fan Bingbing, who is not only another international star who signed on, but playing a fan favorite character, Blink. So I would love to see that kind of a breakup, where you perhaps put, like, let's say, Jennifer Lawrence and Omar Sy, and then you take Hugh Jackman, maybe, and Fan Bingbing, maybe Peter Dinklage. You team him up with Michael Fassbender for an ultra cool duo. That's a buddy cop movie right there. I would love that. It feels very Game of Thronesy for some reason. I like that. So I'm curious to what you guys think. Who do you want to see teamed up together? If you were the Fox PR department, who would you be putting out there and where? And also yourself, who do you want to see? It's a very big cast. Are you interested in all of them? It's just funny to see, the team trading card element that exists in the fictional universe for the film kind of applied to the real life application of publicity for the actors. So I think it's a lot of fun, and it's a fun game to play. So write your thoughts down below for that. That's the first story of the day. The second story, talking about promotions, there was a study that was released yesterday about social media and the top stars in social media. And the big headline was how popular Vin Diesel is. Unfortunately, of course, Paul Walker passed away, but he was very respectful handling that situation, really bringing the fans up to speed, looping them into, celebrating Paul Walker's life and mourning him. And as a result, his Facebook page, he's the most liked actor on Facebook, shot up, I believe somewhere, around 54 million before Paul Walker's death, to now it's at 72.3 million. And also this study pointed out that Vin Diesel is one of the few actors, perhaps, one of the very few actors who handles his own social media. When you read a post from Vin Diesel, he wrote it, whereas most actors have a social media team. Although you can see that can work out very poorly with the Stephen Colbert problem, where Comedy Central was running the Twitter account for his show, and he nor no one with his show had any involvement, and it got them into quite a bit of trouble. And actually, after that incident, they shut down that Twitter account because of that. But as you can see, it didn't have too much of a bad effect on him. He still ended up taking over for David Letterman. But so anyway, Vin Diesel was named the biggest Facebook star, and for instance, they talked about a recent post that also made headlines yesterday, that he posted a picture of himself with Paul Walker's brothers on the set of the Fast and Furious 7, who are going to be filling in for Paul Walker, to shoot his scenes from afar so the film can be completed. And both brothers look phenomenally like Paul Walker. I think when you see that photograph, I think it does a lot to convince you that they can perhaps pull this off, and also at the same time be respectful of Paul Walker, not cut him out, not recast him, and that it's a family affair. I think that's really great. I think Vin Diesel, through his social media posting, has really done a lot to sell the fact that this is a family affair. That Fast and Furious is a family into itself. But the reason I thought this was very interesting is that I think what you're seeing here now, to some degree, the coverage of these findings. I'll put these charts up here. They have the top Facebook actors and the top Twitter actors. And we can look at Facebook first. Of course, you say Vin Diesel on top, followed by Will Smith, Selena Gomez, Jackie Chan, Adam Sandler, Megan Fox, Justin Timberlake, Jennifer Lopez, Taylor Lautner, and Dwayne Johnson. And then over at Twitter, you have Justin Timberlake on top, Jennifer Lopez, Selena Gomez again, Ashton Kutcher, Emma Watson, Jim Carrey, Charlie Sheen, Kevin Hart, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Neil Patrick Harris. Much smaller numbers over on Twitter, by the way, which I think is very interesting, because Twitter gets all the headlines these days. It's very much in the forefront of media, but apparently Facebook, it hasn't been MySpace yet. Facebook is still relevant. But, they're saying, that this stardom maybe will parlay into box office. But the truth is that it doesn't. I mean, look at your numbers here. Vin Diesel, 72.3 million. That's fantastic. Obviously, Fast 6 was a huge hit, but 72.3 million people didn't go to see Riddick, or even his original number of 54 million. 54 million people didn't go to see Riddick either. So I think that this is an asset for the right film. It's Vin Diesel's able to contribute to the right situation for him. A very famous Paul Newman quote is, he said, I'm not a great actor in every role, but when you cast me in the right role that's a perfect fit for me, I'm invaluable. And I think that's still true today for a lot of stars. So I think when Vin Diesel's in a Fast and Furious movie, yes, he is able to contribute to the publicity through his social media. But obviously, he can't rally moviegoers to just see any movie he's in. Same for Will Smith. He might have 65.7 million likes on Facebook, but where were all those people when After Earth came out? Selena Gomez is hardly doing anything. Most recently she was in rehab. Jackie Chan's still very successful, obviously, but Adam Sandler, his films have not been doing particularly well. Megan Fox, she had to practically beg Michael Bay for that role not Transformers. She was kicked out of that because of the horrible things she said about him, but she had to beg him for this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles role. We have yet to see if that was actually him getting her back, and so on. So I think that really what you're seeing here isn't so much that these stars are able to parlay this into box office, but you're seeing a birth of a new kind of star. For a long time, there was something called a tabloid star, and that was someone who was able to sell a lot of magazines, but couldn't really sell movie tickets. That's something that Angelina Jolie specialized in for quite some time. She still isn't a huge box office draw, interestingly. Sometimes when she's in the right role, she is, but even there, she's not able to post the numbers that some other actors are able to do, like Johnny Depp used to be able to do, and Robert Downey Jr. to some degree still. But even still, these actors, clearly, there are very few actors today, perhaps none, who can just get people to see anything they're in. Tom Hanks was that way for a while until I think he experimented a little bit too much and people lost their faith in him. Leonardo DiCaprio might be the only working actor today who I think can really guarantee a $100 million gross for a film. But he's very good at, again, he's an actor that people trust. He has yet to make a misstep. We'll see if he does going forward, but Leonardo DiCaprio is very good at making sure he delivers to the audience. To the degree that he's kind of, alienated the Academy. He's making choices that are more friendly to his viewers. And also, so you'll see he actually popped up on Twitter, but only with 9.9. He's not even registering on Facebook. So I just think that this is, again, just like the tabloid star, you have a new category of social media star. It means nothing when it comes to the box office. This is just another way and I think where it benefited the tabloid stars and where it might benefit these social media stars was in promotional deals for products, people wanting people to wear their outfits, or I guess here to tweet or to social media about them, maybe tweet or post a picture of them using a certain product. That's where they become valuable. It's almost like a secondary industry. Maybe a year or so ago, there was an article about how there's a whole crop of ingenues in Hollywood who don't work very much. For instance, like Jessica Alba, who have whole careers over just being like in magazines and going on guest talk shows, and Jessica Alba trying to launch actually a lifestyle website now, kind of like Gwyneth Paltrow. So it's interesting to see how actors, they have their initial success and how they can maybe parlay it, maybe not to an acting career, but into something else. So I'm curious to how you guys feel. Do you follow or like any of these actors who are listed here? Does it affect you going to see their film? When Vin Diesel tweets about Riddick, why or why not did you go and see the film? And what do you think of Hollywood's continued misreading of situations like this, where they continually think, oh, this person sells a lot of magazines, they must sell a lot of movie tickets. And that was a mistake that they made. There was no correlation. And now they seem to be making maybe the same mistake. Oh, this person has a lot of likes or follows, they must be able to sell a lot of movie tickets. But we can clearly see that's not the case. Jim Carrey, 12.3 million Twitter followers. The guy hasn't been in a hit for almost a decade at this point. All right, so that's the second story of the day. The third story of the day, speaking about Tom Hanks, is that he's, Captain Phillips, I think, was a little bit of a return to form for him. He got, he got snubbed for an Oscar nomination, but, he was doing the award circuit. He was very good in the film. And now he's looking for his next project. And the one he seems to be circling in on is a Cold War film about a real-life attorney, a prominent U.S. attorney named James Donovan, who was recruited by the CIA back during the Cold War again to negotiate the release of a U.S. pilot, a spy who was flying a spy plane that was shot down over Russia. So true story, and it seems like your typical Tom Hanks film. A little bit on the, a little bit like nothing new from him, but we'll see how the script comes together in the project. And speaking of coming together, Steven Spielberg is also considering to direct this. And I was actually a little bit deflated to hear this news because I'm a big Spielberg fan. I really liked Lincoln. Lincoln really divided a lot of people. Some people like myself thought it was brilliant. Some people thought it was super boring. I remember hearing a lot of people who had rented it or gotten screeners turning the movie off halfway through, or maybe not even getting to the halfway point, which really surprised me. But I thought it was a very masterfully done film, both from Daniel Day-Lewis's acting, of course, that she won the Oscar for, but also Steven Spielberg's directing. But I'm kind of disappointed that Spielberg is sticking with this kind of dramatic film. He really has segued away from films like Jurassic Park and Jaws and Close Encounters of the Third Kind that made him famous, and he's been moving more, I guess Catch Me If You Can was kind of middle ground, but now he's moving into, these smaller films. Amistad, for instance, was his, Schindler's List, and for a while I could see the purpose there because he really wanted to be taken seriously as a filmmaker. He did want to be like Alfred Hitchcock, one of the great filmmakers of all time who never won an Oscar. And Spielberg, he got his Oscar from Schindler's List. But I don't understand why he's continuing to go here. I don't know why he's not more varied. He certainly has a lot of talent. He can still make the big films. I mean, he's had some misses, but what happened to Robopocalypse? That was that Chris Hemsworth, Anne Hathaway film that was coming together. Fantastic title. Apparently that's still in play, even though it's been kind of backburnered a little bit. But I personally would like to see Spielberg go back to making, the films that made him a household name to begin with. And I remember one of you commenting, I think with some of the Lincoln coverage perhaps, I think that's when it came up, that you remembered when it was a great quote. I wish I had it in front of me, but it's hard to find sometimes quotes in the older videos in the comment section. But basically, the BTT viewer said, "I miss when Spielberg used to give me an awe-inspiring feeling instead of trying to teach me." And I really do feel that Spielberg maybe is just a little bit gone too far down the rabbit hole in terms of the Hollywood machine, and has forgotten his audience to some degree. But I'm curious to how you guys feel. Do you want to see Spielberg return to the films that he used to make? Do you feel maybe he can't do that anymore after, for instance, War of the Worlds, which was really a misstep? Or would you like to see, do you like the dramas that he's making? I mean, I liked Lincoln, as I said, but I don't want to see Spielberg just give up the old films that, to this day, are impressive. Although, he also brings to mind Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, also a misfire. Maybe he needs to make another one to remind us that he still can do it, or to prove it, because I'm a big fan of Spielberg's blockbusters. All right, so that's the third story of the day. Now, the question comes from Nicholas, I'm very bad at pronunciation, Nagawiki? So Nicholas says, hi Grace, I love your show. It's my daily ritual. Awesome. Thank you, Nicholas. I never miss an episode. Oh, that means a lot. I appreciate it. Smiley face. Recently, you have been talking about how the actor no longer determines the box office success of a movie. I agree. I haven't been saying that totally, which is one of the reasons I picked this question. I want to clarify. But I think to some degree Nicholas is on the money here. So Nicholas says, I agree, and Transcendence seems to have put the nail in the coffin. However, at the same time, you still mention how actors will lower box office performance, aka are a box office poison. A lot of you took issue with that when I said about Russell Crowe. Although, as you can see, Russell Crowe rallied in the right kind of role with Noah. So Nicholas continues saying, my question is this. In an era where the actor is not the box office draw of a film, is it fair for Hollywood to also blame an actor for the failure of a film? If so, why? Thanks. Great question, Nicholas. I think we are entering an era where a movie star is not the only thing that can sell a movie. I think it's still something that is supposed to be able to sell a movie. I'll get to that in a moment. But we're entering an era where it's more the property, the high concept. High concept is something in Hollywood. It's a term for something that's very easy to pitch to audiences. For instance, ID4 is a high concept film. Aliens attack Earth, blow up the White House. Done. It's something that's an easy sell, very easy for the audience to understand, and that's what a high concept film is. It's a really great genre. I'm a big fan of the high concept film, and to a large degree, that's what's selling films these days. Properties, characters are more important than the actors that play them. Although we're still seeing to some degree that movie stars are important. Robert Downey Jr., for instance, is what propels the box office for the Marvel Universe, and films do not do as well when he is not in them. They're doing well, of course, and nothing to be scoffed at, but they just don't do as well when Robert Downey Jr. is on screen, which is why he has an undisclosed sum that has been paid to him for his signing on for Avengers 2 and 3. And that's the issue. When an actor commands a huge salary, then they are paid that money to bring in an audience. There's no other reason to pay them that amount of money. That's why they're getting the big bucks. You get the salary that it correlates with your box office pull. So Johnny Depp should entirely be blamed for Transcendence not doing well at the box office, because that's why he was brought onto the film. He was paid $20 million up front and 15% of the box office, which just further underscores that they felt that that was his job, to bring in moviegoers. And so he needed to fulfill that. If he can't bring in an audience and the movie isn't going to make money, why pay him that amount of why pay him that money up front? I have long said that I feel that actors should be paid only from back end. They should get a very minimal amount up front, because they should put their money where their mouth is. If they can deliver box office, they'll get their payday at the end. Because I think it really, I've said this just recently, it really hinders films and has them crushed under the weight of these tremendous budgets. But that's where I think the situation where an actor should be blamed. If an actor's getting a big salary and they are promoting the film, they are supposed to bring in an audience. And even the smaller actors, that's why they go on talk shows, to talk about the movie. If an actor wasn't responsible for bringing in the audience, you would be seeing directors and cinematographers and screenwriters going on Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon. But still, it's the actors that are expected to go out there and bring people in. Now, I would love to hear from the directors and the writers and the cinematographers and the producers. I think a number of you would as well, but the system still isn't there yet. It falls on the actors to get people into the theater. That is part of their job, not just to do a great job in the role, but to go out and promote the film and to bring people in. So I think totally they should be blamed. And I think that some people, as I said, what you're seeing is because some people can't do that, you're seeing movie stars and actors are still important, but you're seeing their salaries being lowered. Not a lot of people can command those big paydays anymore, and when they do, it's because they can bring people in. And I think Depp is going to have a very hard time going forward asking for the same amount of money. $20 million is a standard fee these days. When you see a film like Transcendence, and the studio will go, well, what am I paying you for? They're not paying, some of you might argue they're paying for his acting ability, but that is not the case. A lot of actors could have done a good job in that role for a lot less money. Depp was supposed to bring in the audience, and he didn't. And I think Depp realizes that because look at the PR campaign that he went on. He was very, very aggressive, going to China, being the MTV Movie Awards. He worked very hard to promote that film because he realized that that was why largely he was there. So that's the situation, Nicholas. I hope that explains that to you. Thank you for asking your question. We're in a very difficult gray area where the movie star, to some degree, is dying out. But as I said, so that's just to give you, I guess, a roundup. Movie stars don't just drive box office anymore. I mean, actors just don't drive box office anymore. It's often the concept, like Divergent, for instance, but as a result, you're seeing lower paydays for the actors involved in those films. But when you have a big actor who has a big payday, they're still expected to bring in an audience, or else why pay them that amount of money? So thank you so much for your question, Nicholas. I hope that explained it. And I do still feel, though, on the side note, some actors are box office poison. I mean, Russell Crowe, outside of Noah, still his films have done very poorly. Some actors just rub people the wrong way. Even if they're very talented, some people just, the audience in general has said, you know what, I just don't want to see that person on the big screen. And that's just that's a harsh reality. Movies to some degree are still a popularity contest. It's not just all about art. Even on the theater, you're seeing this happen on the stage. Big actors are being brought in to bring in audiences in a very competitive theatrical market as well. On this, you know, even the West End and also in Broadway here in New York City. So it's still to some degree a star-driven business, and an actor has two jobs, to do a good job in the role and to bring in the audience. So thank you for your question. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Write down what you think of today's 3 top stories, the viewer question, what you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.